distro in town, Bazite, that I've been utilizing a lot. I'm going to take this watch off because apparently the family group chat is just getting out of control. My wrist keeps going, this can't do it, dude. One of my favorite YouTubers, Gardner, Bryant, covers Linux gaming. And there's a new video covering Bazite, which is currently my favorite distribution of Linux. It's Fedora based. At least the one I've been utilizing. Fedora, I love. Obviously, they gave me a chair. Red Hat did. And they've given me headphones. I mean, I was a Linux systems administrator for quite some time. So obviously, big fan of Red Hat and all of that. And Fedora and so on. And then Bazite's a great gaming distribution. It pre-packages everything. It's what I was loading on the BC250s. And it basically is just SteamOS in a box based on Fedora. Has like out of the box support for all of the Proton stuff. All the games play day one. It's been an amazing product. So I want to see what update they were doing here.
My Pick a Linux Distro for Beginners video today, but I ran across a video from George Castro on Mastodon this morning, and boy howdy, let me tell you, it got me really excited. I wanted to give what I saw a spin for myself, so that's what I'm doing today. And let me tell you, this is cool stuff, all right? And all my excitement was not let down when I actually got my hands on this. So today I wanted to take a look at a new app store that's coming to Bazite and other Universal Blue based distros.
Okay.
It's called Bizaar, and it's a new approach to app centers. So let's talk about the Bazite experience. And first
okay, so this is going to be a new app, like a package manager, huh?
Impressions are really good. Bizaar is unlike most of the other app store experiences that you're going to find on Linux. Frankly, while I love GNOME, GNOME software is far too sterile, and it also has some surprisingly unstable behavior that I've encountered. I believe that this comes from having too many different software sources.
Yeah,
for example, being able to install system packages and Flatpaks. On the flip side, we've got the likes of the Ubuntu App Center, which is a
he usually has great audio, so I want to give that to him, Max. I will say Gardner typically has good audio. I'm not sure what happened in this video.
Step up from GNOME software, but the fact that it practically forces you to use the objectively inferior Snap package format makes it profoundly unusable for me. And then we have something like KDE's Discover Store. This is what's available on the Steam Deck, and honestly, as a diehard GNOME user, this just doesn't do it for me in terms of UI or...
I like it. That's what I like to use. That's my preference.
Or UX. Plasma simply borrows two...
That being said, command line rules them all, and I'll just use command line 9 times out of 10 for installing anything from, you know, the repositories. Typically don't use any, you know, GUI on Linux at all. Even installing things that will be utilized in the GUI, I still will use terminal to install it all.
Too heavily from Windows's everything's a button aesthetic, and I just find it very ugly and unintuitive to use.
Because it's faster.
Finally, there's the Add Remove Software tool in Manjaro, and this is a more complex software manager. It supports installing every and any possible way that you could ever want to install any software on a Linux distribution, and it does so with a GTK app. I like that, but the fact is, I'm a Linux veteran. When trying to think critically from a beginner's perspective, it might not be the most intuitive thing to use in the world. And that's why I applaud what developer Kalunmi...
Yeah, you're right. Good call. So that is, I have that Rode shotgun mic. I do not know why you would use it like an SM7B like this one, which is what he's using it like, right? Which like this one's meant to come up close to your face. Those shotgun mics are not. And that's why you're getting that peaky raspiness.
And Bazite
have a good night, Smoke.
Are doing here with Bizaar. I mean, just look at this. This looks super nice.
Yeah,
according
it does.
to George, this was about a month's worth of work, and I can already see how this app store is drawing upon familiar UI and UX
I like it.
while still seeking to forge its own path.
I like how it's also gaming centric. So it has like your storefronts like Epic GOG, probably Steam in there. It has options for loading any emulators. Like right there off the bat, it's got Dolphin emulators, the Wii U emulator, all that stuff.
Now, according to George's video, Bizaar started as a brand new kind of app store for Linux desktops. Not only is it built from scratch with a singular focus on supporting Flatpaks, but it's also looking to have a curated experience and supporting developers financially as well. Now, the current build of Bizaar has a few awesome features that I want to highlight in this video. First up is curation. I mean, right off the bat, we can see these different sections here. These sections are easily defined by the maintainers of your disk.
But it's GNOME, huh? Will it be available in KDE? Because it looks like he's using
case,
GNOME
Bazite
here.
Through YAML files that they can...
He's using the GNOME environment for Bazite, it looks like.
Just commit to their GitHub, and it affords them the ability to curate an experience for their users. For example, we have gaming here. And this is a really nice rendered image with some low poly aesthetic going on. It really evokes the feeling of gaming, especially with the DualSense controller. And we have a bunch of applications.
I will say, I haven't checked it in a while, but when I originally tried to use the DualSense in Bazite, it did not play nice. I used the Xbox controller, and then now there's a Steam OS controller. It's a third-party controller, but it has all the Steam buttons, and I really like that because you can pull up both the option menus with shortcuts on the controller, and it has backside
here that fall under the gaming header, and most of these are games that you can install, or managers like Heroic that help you install non-Steam games on your system. There's also Retro Deck, Retro Arch, GZ Doom, but you know, there's also emulators here like Dolphin, and there's also cartridges, which is a GTK based emulation front end. So lots of cool stuff here, but there's also streaming and chat, which includes Discord, Pigeon, and a bunch of others. I'm surprised that OBS isn't in here.
Yeah, TeamSpeak.
Right. Then there's music and media, which includes stuff like Jellyfin, VLC, Tidal, Plex, Spotify, Office and Productivity, and more. And like I said, these headers are defined as YAML files in their Git repository, so these can be changed really quickly. And this, I believe, is really important because Bazite is an incredible way of onboarding new users to the Linux experience and providing new users with not only first-class app management, but discovery is critical. But that's not all. Let's talk about search. The built-in search function works very well here. If we click here, we can type in whatever we'd like. So let's say OBS, for example.
Which, I mean, obviously, like, this is a big deal for onboarding Linux people to Linux right now. And that's going to be, honestly, I think is more important than anything else right now, is onboarding gamers onto Linux, getting that support, and getting competition for Microsoft. And the fact is right now, if you guys haven't noticed, like, even going through the Proton translator, lower level API translator, because Windows 11, I said Linux, because Windows 11 has been so atrocious, you're getting, even going through the translator, better performance on a lot of these newer games in Linux right now. And my primary method of playing video games right now is on my Bazite image with my 7800 XT and a Ryzen 9 9600 or 9700 that's in my bedroom that I just have hooked up to a 4K TV. And at first, when I first started using it, I would have to like change my Proton versions, do a lot of tinkering. But lately, every new game I've installed, I haven't had to do anything but hit play and it goes. It's faster. It starts faster. It goes into sleep and recovers while being in game still. It does everything 100% better than Windows, just across the board.
And we have Obsidian.
But then, of course, like that's why this is important, because people are going to need an easy way to find the applications they're looking for and install them, right? And right now, I would say that's a little bit more difficult to do. So while the Steam OS works great in that format for just playing games, once you get into a desktop environment for gaming, Linux becomes a little bit more difficult.
Obsidian, and we also have OBS Studio. This is more along the lines of what I was thinking. Now, on the left, we have a list of search results, and if we just remove our search here, we can see that it's basically just a singular list of all items. And if we say OBS, we could click OBS here, and now we can see the application details. On the right, we see information about the currently selected app. For example, with OBS, we see that it is free and open source software for video capturing, recording, and live streaming. And then we have up here some buttons for sharing, which brings up this window with official links.
But everybody's a content creator these days, Snake, and obviously OBS working in this right out of the bat is good. Number two, even if you don't game, like, Linux is better, just is.
We also have the install.
You need competition against Windows for a lot of different reasons, right?
Button. And then over here we have some metadata details.
It's free.
Like the application license, for example. We also have the source where this application is going to be installed from. We have the official.
But I play a lot of games.
Website, and we also see
I wholeheartedly disagree with that whole idea of like gaming's bad for you, or like this hustle culture. I used to be wrapped up in hustle culture, I won't lie. I got out of it and I am 100% happier, especially just hanging out and playing games with the kiddos or even by myself.
The total download size. But critically, we also see screenshots. Now, I don't think I can overstate how important images are in modern design. Let's click on OpenRA for a moment. And you can see here that we have many high quality screenshots, and they do a lot of the heavy lifting in order to sell the prestige of the app. And showing the app details here, you can see that we have the majority.
So SteamOS itself is based off Kali Linux, by the way. I think their official version 2 will be Kali Linux based.
For the application itself is taken up by the screenshots. If we compare that to the listing for OpenRA here in GNOME software, you can see that they are taking up more space, but it's harder to scroll. Like this doesn't, for some reason, support the thumb wheel on my mouse. And to be fair, neither does Bizaar yet.
I will say with Linux, like the most important thing is compatible hardware that can be extremely frustrating. And it is that type of thing where I have my peripherals and like my Bluetooth and Wi-Fi adapters that work with Linux. And those are the only ones I use. And I try not to like try new things very often.
But you have to click through or drag or something. You can't even click on these, for God's sakes. I don't know what's going on with this UX here. But I just find this to be a much improved UI over GNOME software. As I mentioned, there's this share button here, and this gives us a modal window with a bunch of URLs that you can use to share with others. This is just another great way that Bizaar is supporting the discovery and the propagation of Linux applications here. So you also have like management built in, where if we install an application, you can see over here we're able to preview its download status as well as update status if we had any apps that needed to be updated. So yeah, I find that very neat. And you can see we've now installed Heroic. So if we click up here and say Heroic, there it is. Heroic is installed.
Yeah.
Frankly, I love this. I think this is a terrific
It's KDE,
update
bro.
here. I love how it ties into the system color scheme with these options. You know, there are a few nitpicks I have, but this is still like in active development. You know, small nitpicks, like I mentioned that the thumb wheel on my mouse doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work here either. I would prefer to have thumb wheel support in something like this, or even the ability to click and drag, which you can't do. I find these like buttons to just be obnoxious. And then other small things like opening up the search and just the way that the text here is distributed with this weird jaggedness. I just don't care for how that looks. But I mean, you know, like I said, this is still in active development. Personally, I wouldn't justify
of development.
The text
it's pretty
to
good.
The extremes. I'd make this text a little
the question
grayer
is,
and have it just be
the problem that you always run into with like the storefronts on Linux, right? Is you'll go in there and you'll find something you want, and then you'll click install, and like the install button is broken for that particular application. And so then the question is like, it really comes down to a QA thing, right? And the problem with open source and QA is like, it doesn't really get done to the level of like the Microsoft Store or the App Store. Like, and if we talk about all of them, like the reason the one good thing that Apple does really well is QA for the App Store, where like everything can kind of be installed from there. If you click install, it works. Like even the Microsoft Store, you run into a lot of things where you're like, I'll install it from the Microsoft Store. And then you hit get and it just doesn't work well. And I think like open source creates that kind of problem with QA when it comes to, you know, building something like this app browser with Bizaar.
Be with like a M dash and move
Continued
it to the
support
left.
is what it needs.
But I don't know. That's just me. Now, before we move on, I do want to mention that I posted an article.
Yeah, I mean, you can say as soon as the dev leaves, the whole place goes to crap. In some cases, right? And then there's other cases where I'm trying to think of a good example. I can't think of one off. There are those applications that haven't been updated in years and still just work. You know what I mean? Like it's always something random. Like I think like Putty and Rufus have recently been updated, but not huge overhauls. But there are those applications that just continue to work for whatever reason and never need to be updated.
About this,
but it's few and far
yesterday,
between.
as of the release of this video,
correct.
over on my blog, gardnerbryant.com. If you enjoy Linux and techie stuff and you want a lot of it, just an absolute fire hose, you can head over to my blog because I'm posting about an article a day over there, at least the weekdays. And yeah, it's super cool. I've posted a bunch of articles that people have really responded to. And you can help support this show by becoming a sustaining member over there. It's all greatly appreciated. And you can also get subscribed to stay up to date with all the fun stuff that we're doing here on the channel. You can also like that smash button if that's more your speed. And with that said, let's get right back into it. Let's talk about the future of this application, because Bizaar isn't just about providing a beautiful UX for software management on your system. There are some exciting things that George is talking about in his video, which you can check out up here. One of them, and I think the most exciting thing, really, donations. They want to include donations here. This is something that the Linux world has been talking about for over a decade at this point and has not made a whole lot of headway. Most Linux app developers do so out of passion, and it's rare that they're able to make a living from their contributions to the free software movement. And if we want our ecosystem to grow and sustain itself, this is a challenge that we're going to have to solve. That's why Bizaar is tackling this challenge head on, but they're also talking about working with FlatHub on a way to help developers get paid on a broader like ecosystem level, rather than just having it be something that Bazite is including in Bizaar. And honestly, I think that that's smart. Given the diaspora of Linux desktops, this will only make an impact if there's some broader community-wide support that's implemented across multiple distributions. Yeah. Now, I love this idea. I fully support the work that they're doing, and I would love to see what their implementation looks.
And there you go, to Snake's point, right, is like a lot of the reason devs disappears because there's not a monetary value there, and they got to go make money to support their family. If there's and yes, you're dependent on people's goodwill, you know, to a certain extent, and it's typically hard to make a living off of that. Like, it's still, there is that monetary incentive, which I think is important. And if it's on a donation basis, I think that's even better.
Looks like going forward,
as long as you make it easy.
Especially if it's as easy as clicking on,
you put it right here,
the application, and then having a little support button here, or perhaps a floating support button,
and then tie it in with a blockchain, and then cha-ching, just send them some Bitcoin Lightning Network or something.
For the images that you could click.
Connect to MetaMask.
On something that really stands out and is able to help drive financial backing to some of these projects that don't receive enough. And speaking of donations to an open source project, you can donate directly to the developer of Bizaar. His name's Kalunmi, and he's independent of the Bazite project. In fact, he's just doing this, and Bazite's already starting to integrate it into their project over on Ko-Fi, or Ko-Fi, however you pronounce Ko-Fi. Yeah, and he definitely deserves it, because I think this is a very cool project. There'll be a link down below. Then let's talk about search. Again, touching on that first-class app discovery experience thing. Yeah, I think that that's critical. And what they're doing here is they want to add the ability to search on the distro level. So up here, you could say OBS and have the...
I mean, that's just what it is with, you know, Windows or, you know, Mac right now, is you have that option to search for, you know, the application. And if it's not there, you know, you'll get like a web link or a link to the store, and then you can install that app from there, right?
The search results suggest installing OBS through Bizaar. And frankly, unlike Windows, where those suggestions are almost universally an assault on your intelligence, here on Linux, this is a list of software that's maintained by the community, and search results are usually very relevant to your queries. And finally, they're talking about curation. And I think curation is important, especially when talking about a newcomer's experience. If this is your first time with Bazite, you might try to install Steam on your system, only to later discover that Steam is already installed. And honestly, a system level Steam package is going to be a much better experience than the Flatpak one. That's why Bizaar will have a feature that allows the maintainers to hide certain applications. Actually, that might actually be in the application already. If we type in Steam, it does not come up with Steam. And that's good, because you don't need to install the Flatpak version of Steam on Bazite. And before some folks cry foul on how this could be used for censorship, give me an effing break, guys. George addressed this in his video. Quote, "We're not going to have a policy like, hey, I don't like this project, so I'm going to remove it. There's going to have to be some technical reasons, and we're definitely not looking to maintain any kind of moderation. Nobody wants to do any of that. All we want to do is remove the foot guns and take apps that people love and put them in front of people so that they can click a little heart and donate." All right, now that we've gone over the experience of Bizaar, I figure we should go over how you can try this out for yourself. The first thing to do is...
But you're typing that on Google right now, Snake.
To download the Bazite image from their website. Then what I did was I installed Boxes through GNOME software. When you get Boxes opened up, you can use the plus button in the top right corner and then select the Install from File option. Then I just selected the Bazite ISO that I downloaded. I ran through the initial setup for Bazite, and once that was ready to go, I booted up the VM, and then I ran the command bazite rollback helper rebase testing, and that moves us over to the testing branch. Note that the command will install the latest testing branch of Bazite that's available for you. So if you're looking at this even tomorrow, you're likely to install a different image than the one that I got in this video. And because Bizaar is in such rapid development, the version that I have here is different from the one that George has in his video, which was released the day before I recorded this. Now, I'm super keen on this. I think that this is one of the most exciting developments in a while in terms of software management on Linux.
And
Bizaar really is focusing solely on Flatpaks. It's not working with system packages at all. It's eschewing most of the...
You trust Jorge? Jorge? Yeah, I mean, the thing is like, it's an app, so it's not any different than anything else. If you're a power user, you're not going to even need to utilize that. And so I understand so there are things that Bazite does, and like SteamOS does as well, where, like, for example, you can't just delete the kernel, right? Like, it's going to prevent you from doing that stuff. Where like a power user is going to understand those things and not do it in the first place, and also maybe would know how to get around that to perform whatever they want. So what Gardner's really talking about here with this in particular, and I think this storefront, is really, it's giving people that are not familiar with Linux and not power users an easy way in, and a simplified manner in which to interact with different applications and software on Linux without having to be like an expert user, which I think at this point is something that really needs to be done, because the only other two options is either buy a MacBook, which gives you the license to Mac OS, or pay a Windows license. And then on top of that, it has kind of, because of the easy use of those other platforms, it has really kind of boxed everybody into utilizing like DirectX, etc. And I think, you know, what I would like to see overall in general, right, is like more Vulkan support, you know, stuff like that. So I am excited for this stuff because, once again, it's about onboarding people that are not necessarily power users in the first place. And then I think, like, if you are a power user and you're familiar with this, then and you don't need it, then you just don't have to use it, right? At the end of the day. I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. If you would like to see more from this particular episode, take a look up here. Don't forget to also subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support me directly, you can go to sonofatech.locals.com and become a member. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next Tuesday.